Oh, good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Weekend Wrap brought to you by CrowCast. With me tonight is Macca alone. How are you going, Mac? You with me tonight?
Yeah, no, I'm in good form, so I reckon we'll box on and we'll hold the fort alone, mate.
Yeah, it sounds like a good plan. Nikki, unfortunately, not well this evening, so just the two of us, but plenty to talk about. Obviously, a disappointing result for the Crows this week, Mac, and a pretty hard round to tip.
Yeah, well, as we were just talking before we came on air, before the Freo game, I've got 5 out of 8, and I think that's pretty good because I went for a couple of non-favourites, and, well, if you follow the favourites, you wouldn't have too many.
No, that's right.
I think you said, Fiend, that you've actually done that, and it's been a bit harsh on you.
Yeah, not good. Only 3 so far, and we'll see what Freo does. But anyway, good evening to everyone on the chat as well, and we'll rip into the scores roundup, shall we? Yes, a very difficult round to tip, Mac, and I don't know, it started badly on Friday night and it didn't get any better. On Thursday night, I should say.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't too good Thursday night, that's for certain.
No, never mind. Look, I'm just trying to bring up my bloody results thing here. Here we are.
Well, the next game, that was Melbourne and Essendon, and Essendon got up over Melbourne. And,
yeah, here we go. Essendon 130 to Melbourne 112, a margin there of 18 points, and that was the start of the rort for not the start, but apart from the Crows game. I didn't give Essendon a chance in this game.
Well, I tipped them, and illogically, I thought, because I just couldn't tip Melbourne because of the fact that their defence is so poor at the moment. And and I thought if Essendon actually do spark on with their runners and get them running, they could actually cut a sway through that defence because that's where they're missing them most. It's a couple of key players, and they've got no defence at the moment. They're not going to win very many games until they get those players back.
No, I don't know. I don't know what it is with the D's at the moment, actually, but they got some work to do. Anyway, then on Saturday we had Sydney getting up over Carlton. I don't know why did I pick Carlton, Macca? Sydney getting up 93 to 74, a margin there of 19 points.
Well, that would be my question to you. Why would you pick Carlton? Look, Carlton are improved this year. There's no doubt about that. They've improved, and I'm delighted with the way the results have got because it still, at the moment, keeps the Blues well down there. But they don't seem to have the ability to run out a full game. They can play at a reasonably good standard now with some of the players that they've acquired elsewhere, and but they can't maintain it. Sydney, on the other hand, they're not much of a team either because they cobbled up a win out of it, but that's about all you could say out of it.
Yeah, and I actually probably thought that Sydney were worse. I didn't think Carlton actually played too badly last week, and I didn't think Sydney played that well against us, and I just had the feeling that Carlton might sneak one in. But anyway, the Giants doing my tip some good, though, 125 to 76. I don't think the Tigers have still ever won up at Spotless, have they?
Not to my knowledge, and they never, ever looked like really winning that game either. At the moment, it was good to see, as I said many times before, I'm a Canelio fan, and it was good to see him back in full flight again. And, of course, their wingman, he just cuts them to pieces. And
overall,
Whitfield,
yeah.
Look, I remember saying years ago with all the young boys, of all the ones I'd like to pinch off, it would be Whitfield because that's the type of player we would love to have on our side.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Richmond, they've lost their bookends, and there's not much in between. And Dusty Martin, not only did he play what I thought was he's actually in football, if he was in civilian life, he'd be a dole bludger because he's actually running, passing, wanting other people to do all the hard work and give the ball to him. And he hadn't had a tackle before this game, and he got frustrated in this game, and he belted somebody in the head behind play, which they've caught, and he'll get games for that. He's then made indecent gestures, etc., and calling somebody a drug cheat, etc., etc. So I would think that he might not be playing for quite a while.
Yeah, you probably got to question Dusty's hunger after having won a flag.
It's not there. It is not there.
It's certainly not there at the moment, and perhaps predictably so. Anyway, the Lions getting up. It's a good solid win. Lions travelling pretty well at the moment, 107-90 over the Power. They kept Lysett sort of out of the game a little bit, and they're looking the goods at the moment, Brisbane.
Yeah, this is a game you had to make a choice really between the two games, Brisbane Lion and Port, and Collingwood West Coast Eagles. And obviously, the Collingwood West Coast Eagles was going to be the classier game, but because I hate Port so much, I watched it hoping they would lose, and they did. And I've got to hand it to Brisbane Lions. They've got a lot of talent on the rise at the moment, and that's if you're in a support footy team and they're not going to be the premier for that year, what you really like to do is to see this growth, and Brisbane Lions have certainly got it. On the other hand, Connor Rosie played an absolute ripper and just made me spew even more that we missed out on him.
Look, I don't even want to talk about it. Hawthorn sneaking over the line against North Melbourne 87-71. That was pretty close all game, probably closer than most people expected.
Yeah, I'd say so. I watched that game, and I have to say that it wasn't of a particularly high standard, but when there were some good bits of play, it was basically Hawthorn that did it, which is why they won the game. Look, even when they've got players out, even when they're not going so well, they've got those very, very clever individuals who can do the right thing at the right time, and they got up because they just do that.
Yeah, the Eagles getting up over Collingwood in the grand final replay, 98-76, a pretty solid win. Collingwood didn't look that flash, I didn't think.
Didn't see that game, as I said, because I chose to watch Port lose, which gave me a lot of joy, actually.
And the last game, which is still in one other one, the Suns doing really well at the moment, Gold Coast, and sort of making every post a winner, 73-68 away against Western Bulldogs. A really, really good win for that club.
I watched that game and I loved it, actually, because it was good seeing an underdog like the Gold Coast fighting on. And the interesting thing is that they've lost in the last year or two, they've lost a heap of what they would call high-class players and highly paid players, and they would go out there and get beaten by 10, 15 goals. At the moment, they've got a team of Joe Nobodies who go out there and try their hardest, and I really was barracking for them because, as I said, they're a team of Joe Nobodies at the moment, but they got up, and they're trying their guts out, and you can't do any more than that.
No, certainly can't. And, of course, the game's still in progress. Looks like Freo getting up against St Kilda, and you'd expect that. St Kilda probably made more of a game of it than what we expected, to be honest.
Yeah, I started watching that game, Fiend, but by this stage I had enough of rubbish, and I thought, I can't watch another game like that. So we'll just let that one pass.
Yeah, let that one go. Look, that leaves us with a ladder of Geelong and Brisbane undefeated on 3 wins. Freo will go into third on percentage after today with GWS, Western Bulldogs, West Coast Eagles, Hawthorn, Port and St Kilda with the Suns, all on 2 wins. 1 win we have Collingwood, Sydney, Adelaide, Richmond and Essendon. And Carlton, North and Melbourne yet to open their account. And at the moment, the only one of those bottom 3 that really look like it at all is Carlton.
Yeah, well, I mean, North Melbourne did have their chance against Hawthorn. Their skipper, he had Zeeble, he had 2 set shots in the third quarter. Right, about 30 metres right out straight in front. missed those, and they were at a crucial stage where they could have actually established a little bit of a lead. But so, I don't know. North Melbourne, they play a little bit in fits and spurts. Some of it's good and some of it's not so good. But yeah, there's no finalists in that lot, that's for sure.
No, not at all. Not at all. Look, let's not waste any time because we've got tons to talk about with the Adelaide game. So let's hook straight into the match review, shall we? Macca. Oh, what a painful game it was on Thursday night. The Adelaide Crows going down 75-99 versus Geelong. First time Geelong's beaten us at home for a while. They look pretty reasonable. We played okay in patches and terribly in other patches. Before we get into any sort of analysis, Mac, what were your thoughts?
Well, the interesting thing is, let me just ask you one question. What did you think of the 350 metres and in each one in its own merits?
I thought 2 of the 3 were there. I didn't think the first one was there. I thought the other 2 were.
I thought the first one wasn't there. The second one was there. And I'm trying to remember what the third one was again. Which one?
Sloanies?
No, Sloan was the second one, I think.
So it was Gibbs, I think.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what that was for.
I just went. The Tex one actually was wrong because he called Tex for coming forward off the mark, and when you actually look at it, Tex actually goes laterally and he doesn't break the line.
He did.
Yeah. So
because that's the way the player had run there, and really, if anybody should be penalised, should be the umpire because he should have been calling play on.
Well, I'll tell you what, they called Rory Laird off on just about every time he got a mark. Poor Rory Laird takes one step and it's play on, but Harry Taylor moved to the side and Tex moved to the side as well. And when you actually look at where the line is, I mean, given that they have to line up the mark with the centre of the goal, so you take that angle and then you look where Tex actually moved across, and he moved laterally. So that one wasn't a 50.
Yeah. So the only thing is about the 50 metres, the reason why I mention them is because not to flog the umpires or anything like that, but either by that one error or the other 2, which probably were deserved, we actually created a lot of momentum for Geelong to get going in the game, which put us behind the 8 ball, from which we never really recovered with our inefficiency with the usage of the ball. As PJ Crows said, his comment was that based on the number of 50s, inside 50s we had and the amount of ball we had, we should have had trouble scoring. But as he says, and nobody can argue with him. At the moment, it's fundamentally dysfunctional.
Yeah, well, there's a few other things too that I've picked up, which we'll go through in the video analysis, Macca. Probably a couple of things that actually surprised me, to be honest, because a few players that I would have had in our best, maybe not so much. But anyway, let's go through some head-to-head stats. Disposals, we're in front, 369 to 349 at a 1.32 kick-to-handball ratio. So handballed it a bit. At times, we handballed it quite a bit. And it was reasonably successful at times getting through Geelong's zone. Marks were down as a consequence, 90 to 108. Geelong kicked the ball far more than we did. Tackles finally was respectable, 66. Geelong only 48 tackles. Hit outs 31 to 37, but I thought we got a bath in the ruck. We can talk about that.
Yeah, we did.
That a little bit later. Look, disposals per goal. Again, we were so inefficient. Nearly 37 disposals per goal and nearly 15 disposals per scoring shot. Geelong down at 24 and 12. 12 is sort of the 11 to 12 is the benchmark, really. So we're inefficient, as the eye could tell. We were inefficient. The clearances were pretty good, 37 to 31. Similar amount of mistakes. They beat us on the rebound 50s, which is how they basically played. They just sat back, as Geelong tend to do against us, just sat back and waited for the turnover or waited for the stupid kick inside 50. We won the inside 50 count by 4, 53 to 49, so that we had no trouble getting the ball in, Macca. We had no trouble getting the ball and getting it in. We won uncontested possessions 235 to 202. They beat us at the coalface, though, 148 to 115, which is a fair discrepancy in contested possessions, I thought. Disposal efficiency up over 70, 71.5, which was okay. Contested marks, we were down 9 to 14. Marks inside 50, 12 to 13. Clearances, we won 37 to 31. 1%ers, we won comfortably 51 to 36. Turnovers 58 to 52. Intercepts 53 to 59, and tackles inside 50, 11 to 3. So a lot of the metrics, Macca, a lot of the actual stats and the metrics were in our favour. But
they don't tell the truth or the total story.
Exactly.
There's two factors that I can think of that I'm very, very unhappy with. The centre structures, for example, all of our players diving in after the ball, they always had one on the outer and in our side of the half, which meant they were facing forward, then towards their goal. And if they got the ball, just straight out to him and straight down the goal, and with the advantage of the 6-6-6 rule. We didn't do too bad in the centre, but if we ever lost it, it was costly the way that we were structured, and we really do need somebody quick on the outside as well to use. So I think at times we had the wrong combinations of players in the centre. The other thing that our forward line at the moment, bloody Jenkins. I mean, seriously, I'm at the point where I'd like to trade him. You cannot keep playing behind your opponent, and if you can't take overhead marks and contested marks, you have to be leading your guts out. I mean, they got a lot of very, very easy goals by just playing leads into an open space. They did the spread. They got their forwards leading in all different directions and creating an opening for the forward to lead into. And they did got several goals that way, whereas we did it the hard way bloody all night.
Well, a couple of things that I noticed, Macca, before I looked closely. One thing I noticed is that when they transition from behind. So they're, instead of leading up into space, they're leading from behind the kicker diagonally into space, which means that they're pushing players forward. And at the same time, their forward line remains quite open, so they compress quite strongly, 20 to 30 metres from the kicker. And then, of course, once they've got that diagonal cut through, then they tend to have quite an open forward line going in. The other thing is that they, it was hard around the contest, but they played a relatively bruise-free brand of football. They were quite happy to zone us, to push us into uncomfortable positions, and to force turnovers. They didn't try too hard to harass us with the ball in hand. They just were very well drilled, and they forced us to kick to places on the ground that were going to be least effective and least painful for them.
The only player for them that really went in desperately hard was Dangerfield, and I thought he was outstanding. Actually, he's easily BOG.
Danger was definitely BOG, but I'll show you some footage in a second. Crikey, what have you got going on out there?
Some speed maniac going past our place.
Look, all right, I'm just going to go to the video, because if you're watching on Facebook at the moment, have a look at the video, and if you do happen to get a chance to watch afterwards, if you're watching this on YouTube, because the first quarter obviously was probably the most decisive. Macca, would you agree?
Oh yeah, that's where the game was won and lost.
Yep, and I'd like just to point out some midfield issues that occurred in the first quarter. So just going to run to this video now. Now, this first one is a setup where you'll see that we basically leave Dangerfield alone. Dangerfield.
I couldn't understand that.
Well, what happens? Watch where Brad Crouch is. Brad Crouch was on the defensive side of centre, and he's actually nowhere near Dangerfield. So Sloane leads Dangerfield under the ball. Dangerfield keeps going. Brad Crouch is out of the play, so he's our defensive midfielder, and he doesn't cover Dangerfield. So Danger then cuts to the flank to get the pass off Ablett, and Sloane can't catch him because he's been wrong-footed. But Brad Crouch is nowhere to be seen. It was the slackest piece of midfield work you'll ever want to see. So, yes.
I remember the incident you're talking about because I was actually screaming abuse at the TV at that stage.
Yeah. The next one, again, we've got Brad Crouch covering Dangerfield quite well at this point. Okay, but watch what happens. Dangerfield goes and Crouch, he just stays there. He doesn't move. So Dangerfield gets the take off the spill off the congestion. Brad Crouch is on the other side of the contest. Now they started with Brad Crouch in front of Dangerfield covering him. The next part of this play is their midfielders running forward to get the loose ball that's come as the ball was scrubbed into the centre half forward area. D-Mac runs past it rather than being defensive. And the next bloke there is, I forget, who's 22 for Geelong again? I can never remember his name. Duncan. He's in about 2 acres of space. Now, he started in the middle with our guys, and yet the closest guy was Sloane, and he was 5 metres away. So it's just poor running and poor work rate. The next one, again, we've got a situation where Dangerfield's got it on a half-back flank. And if you have a look, all our midfielders are running into the corridor, not covering anyone, not even really covering space. And at no stage has Dangerfield looked down the corridor. In fact, Geelong played up and down the line consistently on Thursday night. So Danger goes down the line to a contest. But have a look where our players are. We've got 2 in front of the ball plus the contest, Kelly in the contest. But you watch the Geelong players run off this ball as compared to Rory Sloane and Atkins. And we've got 2 blokes here, Menengola and Duncan, calling for the ball in the middle, right? Now, they're midfielders. The ball gets kicked in high. Tex is actually contesting this one. The ball spills down. It juggles around a bit. Someone has a snap for goal, and it gets smothered. And it goes into Menengola's hands. Now, Menengola has basically been free for a minute in that play. Nobody has picked him up in a minute of play, and he missed a shot. But that's not. This next one, we got a front-on view. Matt Crouch is running with Kelly, I think it is, and the ball's come in. Kelly's run forward. Matt Crouch has just let him go and then realised, oh, shit, I better chase, and he's been burned off by 5 metres. Our midfield in that first quarter, Mac, was as slack can be. It was terrible.
You can't argue with that. They had loose guys everywhere, as you said, and we didn't work hard enough defensively.
No, we didn't. But our positioning was bad. Brad Crouch twice just let Dangerfield go. Now they were obviously playing 1-on-1, or Sloane played on Dangerfield for a little while, and then Crouch went on to him. But both times, Crouch just didn't stay with him. Like, he didn't follow the ball. He was ball watching and not worrying about where Dangerfield was. But not only that, Crouchy wasn't even in a right position had we got the ball out of congestion. He was absolutely nowhere, Macca. Just nowhere. Anyway.
Yeah, I'm not doubting anything you said, because there are so many things that you could pick on. That's one area. Can anybody explain to me why Gibbs was kicking off from points?
Look.
Which actually cost us a couple of goals.
Yeah.
When you've got Smith, who is the best clearance kicker in the competition, who I'm just at a loss. I can't understand it.
But
Gibbs was kicking shit out all night, and they're allowing him to do the kickoffs. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't get that too, and I'll show a little bit of footage in a minute with our kickoffs. I just want to show some more footage of our decision-making in the first quarter, Mac, because some of it was atrocious. It really was. It was just mind-blowing, some of this stuff. So the first one here, we've got the ball on our half-forward line. It goes to Eddie. This is the one Eddie on the pocket, and he's tried to chip it in the middle. Tex has got it. 2 in space at centre-half forward, and Tex kicks it on JJ's head to a 2-on-1. There was no way that Jenkins was ever going to mark that ball. The second one here... sorry, I've missed this one. Hang on. Oh, this is a kick out. So we've kicked it out. The ball's gone to Gibbs. He's kicked it out very, very wide. I don't know why we went so wide. Anyway, it's chipped around, and straight to the opposition because we're just so indecisive. So indecisive with our ball movement, and then gives away that 50. The next one here is the difference between what we were doing and what Geelong were doing, because they were just chipping, and you notice in that clip that they're all running from behind the kicker. The next one is the burst through the middle, Mac. This is all in the first quarter. Sloaney gets it, handballs it back to Eddie, who handballs it to Matty Crouch, and Matty Crouch just bangs it on his boot to nobody. He's had 2 runners on his outside, and Chase Jones has ended up forcing it out of bounds. But I have no idea what Matt Crouch was doing. Here's another one. Bryce Gibbs, a big stupid kick out of defence. It goes back to Geelong, and they just start spotting up. They just spot up, and we're all out of position. And Wayne Millerer just let his man go.
Yeah, there was too much of that going on.
When we did it right, this is one where we did it right. Sloan to Betts to Crouch at centre half forward. Or it could have been Lockie Murphy, actually. Over to Atkins. And through for our first goal. That was when we actually had patience and when we actually used players. Here's another one coming out of defence where we've gone down the corridor. Riley O'Brien's got it. Nice little chip kick on Riley to, I forget who that was, Eddie Betts. We've gone back to Eddie instead of going wide, which was the good thing to do. Eddie's run through, and then he's just kicked it on Tex's. Like, it wasn't kicked to anyone. It was on Tex's head in a 2-1 situation. The next one is Lynch at centre half forward. Sorry, I'll just run through these, Mac. He's got 2 blokes going wide, and he just kicks it again to Tex on a 2-on-1. Like, it was just a stupid place to put the ball. And we've got another one coming out of defence here. And it's just a hat kick, and Geelong take the mark because we're not actually watching. And this one's actually the next good one. Crouch over to Eddie Betts again on the outer side. Oh no, this is a crap one too, I think. Straight, it is too, straight to the opposition. He couldn't lace out Tex from 15 metres away. This is another one from halfback. Alex Keith just kicks it to a 2-on-1. We're lucky to get out of it. Atkins has got it over to Sloan. Sloan handballs to a stationary Jenkins facing the wrong way. Jenkins can't hit Betts with a handball, and the ball goes out of bounds. They're terrible.
That was horrible.
They're terrible forward 50 entries. Terrible. And then I think this one we actually got right. And this is where... this is where, again, Sloaney's just blazed away from 50 and kicked a point where we had a bloke inside. This is the good one, I think. And this is where D-Mac actually hit someone up at centre half forward. Hits Chase Jones up. Whenever we hit that spot at centre half forward, Macca, we got results. But whenever we tried to kick the ball in deep, we were just outnumbered. And I don't know why we persisted in trying to kick the ball deep. All in the first quarter, all that stuff was.
Well, the interesting thing is, as you quite rightly said, Geelong always play us the same way. They sit back and wait for us to kick it to them. It's as simple as that. And yet, down the other end, they're leading in front. I just can't work out why one team can lead up, another one can't.
Well, it's all about space, Mac. It's all about how we move the ball and
but the
how
forwards
our
have
forwards
to create that space. They have to spread, make room.
Well, that's true. And the thing of it is we give up the corridor quite often. We actually there are a lot of times where we started our ball movement in the corridor and then went wide.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, that was Sloan did that.
We've done that. We did that all throughout the game. And then we've got to kick it back into the corridor to that's actually a dangerous kick then, because you're exposing yourself on the other way. So, whereas Geelong would quite often come through the wing and that little chip into the point of the square, and all of a sudden they've got a little chip kick into 35, 40 metres out. The next little bit of clip I'll show you is the third quarter, which I felt like we had our chances in the third quarter, Mac.
Oh, we did. We dominated third quarter.
But again, we just didn't make the most of them. So we'll just run through these.
We blew it in the third quarter, yeah.
Yeah. So this first one here was we finally started to move the ball properly inside 50. Crouchy is a nice one over to Eddie, who hits up. Who did he hit up? Sloaney. So all of a sudden we're starting to chip in, drop the eyes and chip in short. Here's another one where we've kicked it out wide to Lynch, and he's hit up Sloaney. I don't know how Selwood thought that was touch, but not a chance. So we're hitting up those little kicks inside forward 50 at about the 40 metre mark, and we're getting results. This is much better movement in the third quarter, much better movement, because we're spreading them wide, we're moving the ball relatively quickly. Keith goes back into the middle, but he kicks it long, and as soon as he kicks it long, we're outnumbered. We're out of 3-on-1, and Menegola's back there to take the mark. So we are. It's the deep entries, Macca, that are hurting us. It's not the short hit-up entries. It's the deep entries. This is another one. Tex takes the ball about 65 metres out. And this is the one where he's hit McKay up, and had it been anyone else, someone would have marked it, but it was the right spot for Tex to kick the ball. It was just that it was McKay that was taking the mark. Here's another one where I think it was Lockie Murphy. Every time we try to hit the ball up deep, Jenkins was playing behind at that point. So we have a problem with our blokes that are playing deep forward, Mac, because every time we hit up to 40 metres out, we got results. Here's another one where Miller breaks free, gives a handball off to Sloan. Oh, no, sorry. Gives a handball off to Jenkins, who does that stupid little fake. Now, Brodie Smith tries to hit this one in, and he hits it straight to the opposition. And he had two blokes. If he'd have dropped his eyes, he had two blokes 20 metres in front of him. Here's another one where Tommy Lynch, again, tries to hit up Tex on the boundary line. Misses him by 5 metres, but it's the wrong place to be kicking. It's just we're not kicking to the right areas, Mac.
No, and of course you've got to lead to the right areas as well. So at the moment, to me, structurally in the forward line, it's just not right. It's not working because.
Here's one here, Mac. This is Chase Jones gets off the lead, and there's space in front of him. And instead of kicking it into that space, we kicked it to a pack over his head. Now, Chase Jones had time and space. I forget who had the kick. It might have been Tom Lynch, actually.
I remember.
Might have been Tom Lynch. But had he just put the ball into space for Chase to run onto, it was a shot on goal.
Yeah, and then as it turned out, it was a turnover. So
I just don't understand why we're having so much trouble up forward with our forward 50 entries. Because our midfield, after quarter time, they tightened up. Our midfield got better. We started covering Dangerfield a little bit better. And we had plenty of the ball in terms of being able to get the ball inside forward 50. But we were just hitting it to stupid spots. We're just not putting it in the right spots. I'll just play a little bit of fourth quarter footage while we're talking here, Mac. But there's no rhyme or reason to how we're moving the ball. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, quite frankly, I'm not really, I often used to say last year that I could not work out what Port Adelaide's game plan was. Well, at the moment, I can see what our game plan is ending up doing. Surely that's not what it's intended to do, because only an idiot would devise a game plan that is as we're doing it at the moment. We just burn the ball all the time.
Yeah. Well,
and,
I mean, the first one that I just showed there was Alex Keith couldn't hit a bloke up from 20 metres, and again he was kicking that stupid position on the boundary line. This one here is the second of the two stuff-ups by Gibbs on the. I don't know what we were trying to do to run that ball out, but Smithers ends up having to hat kick it into the middle, and it comes straight back in. And then we've got one here. Miller kicks down the line. Eddie actually should have taken that mark instead of letting it bounce, but he plays on, and then he tries to hit up Riley Knight, and he's missed him by 20 metres, Macca. He couldn't even put the ball. All he had to do was put the ball in front of Riley Knight, who was running into goal, and he couldn't put it within 20 metres. Just couldn't do it. This is another one where Tales has kicked across the back. Gibbs has taken a good mark. He's gone down the line. We're moving the ball really well, if I remember rightly, on this play. Handballed over to Sloaney, who's made ground. Another little chip pass. So we're moving it well. Tex back to Sloan. Back to Seed. He's found Lynch on the out. I think it's Lynch on the outer side. Now, Lynch just kicks it to one Geelong player in the goal square. There's nobody there except
that was
Geelong.
Madness. I remember that one, yeah.
And then we've got the killer. This is the killer blow, obviously, in the last quarter, where we've got the situation where the ball spills out. It comes to Eddie. Nice little give over to Tom. He's given it across to Crouchy, who's missed that snap for goal that even my cat would have kicked. And then from the kick out, they pinpoint a mismatch. Blitzarves on McKay, and of course Blitzarves obliterates McKay airily, kicks it long because they've run. Meanwhile, none of our midfielders have run back because they're all dropped their heads. Geelong are able to stream forward, and of course, who's on his own at the end of it is Gary Ablett. And Gary Ablett slots. But there's not one of our midfielders in that whole passage of play because they've all dropped their heads and refused to run back after Crouchy's missed that snap for goal.
Yeah, they more than dropped their head because at that stage we had momentum.
Well, 3 points down. 3 points down. That was a 12-point play.
And if he kicks that goal, which I saw as a gimme, then we hit the lead and we got momentum, and we may well have gone on and won the game, even in spite of all the errors that we did, all the missed kicks, etc., etc. But, gee, I'll tell you what, it was almost like our blokes dropped their bundle after that, because after that it became all Geelong. Yeah,
well, that was it. It took all their wind out of the sails. But so I don't know whether that Crouch shot was called not 15 or whatever, but irrespective, Crouchy should have kicked that goal. But
apparently it was called not 15.
Yeah, but what should have happened after that is that our mids, because Sloan was down there, Crouch was down there, I think one other down there, I can't remember, Rory Atkins, I think. They're all very deep in our forward line, but they didn't break back. And Geelong were very clever in spotting the mismatch between Blitzarves and McKay, but they had players streaming down the ground on that break, and our blokes were nowhere. So that was a 12-point turnaround, and that was basically the ball game from that point of view. Extremely disappointing.
The only positive I can take out of the game is that we got beaten by, I think it was 24 points, is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
Yep. And we played a very, very good team, because I think Geelong are going to be a very good team this year. And we made 3,000 errors, and we didn't, as you say, many times we structurally were just not in the right place, not working hard enough to cover, etc. And yet still only lost by 4 goals after missing up these set shots that should have been goals as well. You take the Riley O'Brien thing. I mean, if that wouldn't make you drop your ass, nothing would. I mean, 20 metres out, and he's playing AFL League football, and he spoons it out of bounds. I mean,
well, what did I say on Tuesday night when Nikki said, "Oh, yeah, you can take a mark up forward," and I said to her, "What's the point in having a bloke who can take a mark up forward if you can't kick a goal?" And she said, "Oh, his kicking's improved." That was the most expected kick of the whole night. That shot for goal. There was no way he was ever going to even get close to making that goal.
Well, I can tell you, I'm not kicking. I would have kicked that with a set shot with my wrong foot.
Yeah, of course you could have.
Seriously, that was just ridiculous. That you can be playing AFL football and not kick that goal, and that's enough to make really take a great heap of momentum out of a team. And
Yeah.
in that third quarter, we dominated, and we made a lot of errors as well, and we certainly didn't capitalise on all of our dominance in that one quarter, and we just wasted so many shots. So, look, there is some positives there, but unfortunately they all became negative because of what we didn't do or what we did wrong.
Well, aside from Dangerfield, it was a very even performance by Geelong. Danger was a standout simply because we refused to work as hard as he did to get the ball. But I see more worrying signs than anything else, Mac, because
it's worrying.
Our midfield is not running. It's one pace. We did better in the third quarter because they shifted Miller in there and got some pace around the ball. But Brad Crouch, for all the possessions that he's getting, he gives a lot of nothing possessions. He gives a lot of possessions to blokes in trouble. He's not hurting the opposition with his possessions at all. And his positioning around the contest is woeful. Absolutely woeful, Macca. He's not in the right spots, and he doesn't stay in the contest. He ball watches like an under 12. And it's a real worrying sign from the bloke who's supposed to be the missing link in our midfield.
I won't blame him just alone, because I think structurally we are set up incorrectly.
No, mate. Sorry. Those two incidences that I showed were nothing to do with structure, because the second one in particular, Brad Crouch was actually covering Dangerfield. He actually had Dangerfield directly behind him, had body on him, and then he just proceeded to ball watch. And in the meantime, Danger has got himself in the right position to get the spilled ball out, and they kick the ball forward as a result. Nothing to do with structure, nothing to do with anything other than bad positioning and bad football from supposedly an elite midfielder.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you, but I'm just saying that it's a lot more than just that, because the once we put in our structure in the midfield, Miller with pace, and as an outside player, it also made a total difference in the way we handled those bounces, and we looked so much better for it.
I don't think we're running hard enough, Macca, and I think that's why we're getting pushed wide so easily, and I think it's why we're having trouble with our forward 50 entries. And don't get me wrong, our two key posts up forward, particularly Jenkins, are not doing enough when the ball comes in deep to forward 50, because just about without exception, when the ball was kicked in to less than 30 metres out from goal, it just came straight back out. I don't think we took one mark 30 metres out from goal. All our goals and all our shots from goal, from set shots, were basically from short passes from 40 to 45 metres out. So we've definitely got problems with our two key posts, particularly Jenkins, because he just does not know how to play in front. But I don't think our midfield are working hard enough. They look slow, they look heavy in the legs, and even Rory Sloane is not working as hard as Rory normally does. He lifted his game in the second half, well, probably halfway through the second quarter, I reckon. After he got that boot in the face from Danger that was accidental, he kind of started playing a bit angry, in my opinion. But they're not working hard enough. There's too many times where I saw them sagging off the back of contests, and their direct opponent just ran forward. Menengola did it repeatedly. Dangerfield did it repeatedly, and they had direct opponents. We're playing man on man in that midfield.
Look, you can't argue with anything you're saying there, because it's true. But I also see that as not just the players. I also see that as coaching problems as well, because you're seeing, you're not the coach and you're seeing it. Why aren't our coaches seeing it and making the appropriate changes if necessary, either in personnel or structure, to make it happen?
Well, you would assume that the coaches are seeing it because it's bloody obvious. I mean, I've spent a couple of hours looking at tape and spotting bits, and if I can see it, then someone doing a post-match review, a Monday review, and putting video together for blokes. I mean, I'd be horrified if Brad Crouch didn't have those 2 bits of footage shown to him from the first quarter where he was basically slack. But
I'm sure that he
off
would.
for the Pixies. So I think the problem is that our club has a culture of consistently backing blokes in. We do not use selection to maintain tension within the team. We always back blokes in to do better. We always back the team in to follow the plan better, etc., etc., etc. And I think, apart from anything else, that game on Thursday night was just about lost at selection. Because how the hell can you pick a defence like we did when Geelong lined up the way they did? They were a mosquito fleet. They were small.
Yes, they were.
And we had Jake Kelly, Kyle Hartigan, Alex Keith, and Daniel Talia. And they had 4 smalls in there. And then, half the time, when you see Hawkins going for the ball, who's on him? Jake Kelly. Jake Kelly is the bloke that supposedly has taken over Luke Brown's spot. And yet Jake Kelly is going up against bloody Tom Hawkins. So who's on this small?
That means that obviously Talia has been lost his man. Talia was off for a little while too at one stage there, getting a bit of a massage on his leg. But I did see a couple of occasions where Kelly had to go up against Hawkins, and not the right man for that.
But the problem with that is that's not his role. His matchup was one of the smalls.
No, I understand that. It means he's covering for somebody else who isn't there.
So
then means, of course, his man is loose.
So where's Alex Keith or where's Kyle Hartigan? This is what I mean. Our selection was completely inappropriate for the Geelong side. Cam and I spotted it on Thursday night when we were talking about, or Wednesday night when we were talking about it. The matchup, we were far too small, far too tall in defence, and we were far too one-paced in the midfield. And we don't have any sort of dynamic player up forward. We've got 2 small defensive forwards. We've got a further small forward who hasn't kicked a goal all year, just about. We've got Lynchy, who got a bit more of the ball, but was by and large ineffective with his disposals. And then we've got Tex, who only looks good when he's leading high up the ground. And Jenkins, who hasn't looked good all year, apart from 10 minutes when he chopped out in the ruck against Sydney. So why
we can't argue with any of that.
So the changes that you'd make, Ned McHenry has to be the one to come in for Lukey Brown. He's a kid, but he doesn't lack courage. He's hungry, and he's a tackling machine. Surely to God, you've got to bring Ned McHenry in. Then you've got 2 young, quick tackling machines in the team, Chase Jones and Ned McHenry. You can play them on either end of the ground. Darcy,
who are you taking? Who are you going to take out?
Jake Kelly. Jake Kelly is useless in that role. He's not up to playing a role on a small forward. He's just not the type of player to do it. He's slow and he's cumbersome, and half the time he's mismatched. Jake Kelly's got to come out. Darcy Fogarty needs to come in. Why a player of Darcy's quality? I don't care. I'd like to see him down back, but I don't care whether we play him forward or back. Darcy Fogarty has to be in the team. Ben Davis has to be given an opportunity, and Riley O'Brien may as well have a line put through him because he is not AFL standard. And why the hell have we stuck with Riley O'Brien on our list for 3 or 4 years when it's painfully obvious that he's not AFL standard?
Yeah, well, firstly, let's deal with Fogarty. Fogarty, I've been saying for about 3 weeks that, to me, Jenkins is not the answer at full forward. I'd put him out on a half-forward flank and make the bastard run around and lead and work to get his football. Because he has got good pace for a big man. I'd have Fogarty up at full forward. And then the rest a mosquito fleet around them. Because you don't need that many big guys close to goal. We got too much. We're too clunky close to goal. And
I don't know whether we're clunky. It would be great if they'd actually play in front, Mac.
They can't mark. They can't mark. But at the moment, Jenkins is a liability there. I thought Tex did not have a great game, but by the same token, Tex would have every right to abuse about 10 people who ignored very valid leads that he made that the ball wasn't kicked to him as well. So there weren't all that many people forwards giving good leads, and I reckon I could get close to 10 that Tex made and they were ignored, and the ball was kicked to a pack instead. So
yeah, absolutely.
So I half feel sorry for Walker. It wasn't one of his great games, but I half felt sorry for him. Jenkins, I just had nothing but scorn for his game. I really just thought it was back to his old tricks, and when we used to really get very uptight and abuse him, I just thought he just had a very, very poor game, but he's had a reasonably poor season so far, and I'm not happy with him being the main man up forward.
No. I think it's come to the point where Jenkins either plays ruck or he's out of the team, in my opinion. And he's not the answer in ruck, don't get me wrong, but I think he actually I think he'd give us a little bit more than O'Brien in the ruck, and I think it's about the only place at the moment where he looks half engaged. He's hopeless up forward. He's not a natural forward. He doesn't make good positions. He doesn't run to good locations. Half the time when you see the ball coming in, you see Tex and Jenkins running to the same position. Now, they've been playing in the same team for a long time now, Macca. It should be a classic 1-2 punch, Jenkins and Tex, but it's not. Now, it doesn't matter about coaching. After a while, players get to know each other, and if Jenkins and Tex hasn't been able to work it out after all this time, then it's time to move on from it. It's time to move on, and whether it's Fogarty, whether it's Ben Davis, or whether it's both, to come in and give the forward line a bit of a shake-up. Something has to happen, because we've had 3 rounds of this now, and it was clear that the JLT form, in terms of being able to move the ball freely through, from one end of the ground to the other, was simply because other teams weren't putting full pressure on us. And now that we are playing the real stuff and teams are putting full pressure, we just have no idea. There's a complete and utter disconnect.
Yep. And the other bloke that should be coming into the side, in my opinion, is Greenwood too. And he should be, as he was last year when he was in top form, he played on the ball and resting up forward. And that's when he was at his best. So I'd certainly bring him into the team. He can't be worse. By now he should have got a reasonable degree of fitness. He certainly can't play worse than a lot of the guys that are getting a game.
Yeah, but he's not pacey, Matt.
No, that's a problem. We don't have a pacey team. But having said that, if we have a look at you watch the Port game, really, what Rosie showed, if you've got a forward that can take a mark, he's bloody dangerous. This kid was playing his third league game, and he's kicked 5 goals, and he's taken several marks up forward. And that's the one thing we lack, that player that can take a mark up forward.
Yeah, Vuddy Magic in the chat mentions that Jenkins kicked 7 goals in round 23 last year. He might have kicked 7 goals in round 23 last year, but how did he kick those goals? He didn't take them from strong contested marks. And we've already mentioned that Jenkins was far better in contested situations last year. He seems to have gone back into his laconic shell again this year, where he just doesn't want to present. It doesn't want to, take physical contact and impose himself. Whereas last year he seemed to have gotten over that, but he's lost it again over the summer. Pardon me. I just think enough is enough with Josh. I really do.
Well, we really lost me in that situation when the ball was in our between the forward pocket, half forward flank, and uh, he ended up with some miserable effort, and the ball's gone out of bounds, and he seemed very relieved, just jogged away rather than putting in a decent effort to get the ball. I thought
Yeah.
that was pathetic. That was.
So I put up a question, Macca, in the Facebook chat, and I wanted your opinion on this. In terms of our ball movement, there's a couple of things that have crossed my mind. One is it looks as if we're carrying a very heavy training load at the moment, or we're just very slow, one of the two. But the other thing is we're not very fluent, and it makes me wonder whether we're being overcoached at the moment, whether there's too much going on in the small little footballer brain at the moment when they've got the ball.
Well, at times they do look confused. There's no doubt about that. But there were some passages of the play when we did have our good passages of play. That's when I think they were actually playing the game plan we're trying to play, but we just didn't do it very often. That was all. And basically, the idea is to be patient with the ball until you see and work it till you just see that opening, and then go quick into the forward lines. But unfortunately, with nobody leading, that comes to nothing in the end anyhow.
But a lot of people were complaining about Jimmy Bartell's comments on Thursday night, but I thought he was fantastic, and he said a couple of really good things, and one of them was that you want to either go into your forward line very, very quick or very slowly. You don't want to be in the middle, because if you're slow and you move the ball in, at least you're set defensively if the ball comes out. And if you're quick going in, then obviously you've got the opportunity to catch the defenders out of position. But if you go in sort of meandering, half-assed about it, you're neither here nor there. Your defence isn't set, but your forwards haven't really got themselves into position either. So, and it seems to me that that's exactly what Adelaide were doing most of the time. We weren't moving the ball lightning fast. So by the time we got to our forward line and pumped the ball in, Geelong had enough time to get themselves set defensively. But as a consequence, when the ball came out, we weren't really set defensively to get return inside 50s. And it seems to me that we're not a fast team, but we're not patient enough to hit up targets. And the only time we did it was in the third quarter, Macca, and that's when we got back into the game. There were four or five examples.
I think that was in that period we were playing the game plan we were intending to play for the day. But I think it was about the only time we played it reasonably correctly, but also wastefully as well, because we missed a lot of opportunities we should have taken, because we did create a lot of opportunities in that quarter.
Yeah. And by the way, someone needs to get Jimmy Bartell on our coaching panel, quick, smart. I reckon he's an extremely, extremely insightful ex-player with valid recent experience, and I think he would be an excellent addition. I don't know how you felt about it, Macca, but his insights from my point of view and the way he was able to give some insight into how Geelong was playing against Adelaide were very, very interesting in my view.
Well, I rate Bartel very highly, actually. He was a very, very good footballer. He was a very smart footballer, and as a commentator, you can tell that he really understands the game. If you look at our coaching panel, Pike relies very, very heavily on it, and if we look at one end, you've got Ben Hart, who we told to go look elsewhere for a job and hopefully would get one somewhere else. Nobody else would take him. So rather than pay him out, we stuck with him. I mean, the comparison between him and Teague, I'm not. It's really like golden ship, to be honest. To be very honest. I was trying to think of a better example, but
no, that pretty much does it. Yeah, that pretty much does it.
And we had Birdbrain, the dickhead, the year before. I'm sick and tired of our club now being. A lot of people say it's nice to have the old boys return, and it is if they've got the ability to do the job. But Birdman, he wasn't qualified to get the job that he got, and in my opinion, Hart wasn't. he was sacked by Collingwood. We took him on. Why? I think because he's a mate of Risciuto's. I have no idea why we took him on. And
let's just have a look at the coaching panel for a minute, Mac, because this is a team, or this is a club that was in a grand final 2 years ago, and were quite happy to blame injuries and off-field disasters for last year's aberration, and fully expected to be back in the mix this season. And yet they have given their coach the following assistants. Scott Campriali, who's been there for 7,000 years, who has no experience outside of the Adelaide Football Club from a coaching perspective, and is playing days are so long ago that I doubt that he'd even remember them. We've got Matty Clark, who cuts his time half between the women's, and he'll be back on deck now with the men's. Then we've got Ben Hart, who got fired from Collingwood and only got kept on at Adelaide because we couldn't get anyone else. And then we've got two apprentices. Marnie Matner, who is obviously a good SANFL coach, and Mick Godden, who's obviously a good CS. But they're two first-year coaches in the AFL system. So our premiership winning team apparently is going to be coached by Don Pike, a has-been, and two apprentices. What sort of a coaching panel is that to give your head coach when you're hunting a flag? What sort of coaching panel is that, Mac?
Well, and I think that's half the answer to the problems that we're talking about. Because when we have problems on field, they don't seem to get corrected very quickly, and sometimes not corrected at all. And yet, with the opposition, if we get on top in a particular area, they've got coaches that work it out and work out a way to slow us down in that particular area. So your point's very valid. It's really giving boys to do a man's job, and that's not going to work.
No, well, at the end of the day, we were promised by Andrew Fagan a best-in-class football department. And I don't think by any measure he could suggest that at the moment we have a best-in-class football department. Our football department is headed up by Bird, and then you've got Pikey, and then you've got the assistants that I just listed. Now, that's not a best-in-class football department. So what the hell is going on? Why aren't we prepared to spend the money to get decent assistant coaches in to help out Don? Because, you can say what you like about Don's coaching style, and I've got my opinion on Don's coaching style, but irrespective of that, we've lost some very good assistants over the last couple of years, plus we lost a very good strategy guy to Essendon as well in the last couple of years. We've lost some good talent, some good coaching talent. But in that time, there's been coaching talent available. Brett Ratton's been available. Peter Sumich has been available. There's been a couple of others that have been available. You got Jimmy Bartell, who's sat on the sidelines, who would be a very, very valuable acquisition in my view. Why can't we get these people across? Why are we relying on and no offence to these people that we've got on, but is it an appropriate panel to have around a senior coach when you're supposedly dead set in the middle of a premiership window? I don't think it is.
I think PJ makes a good point about not putting money into it. I think because we're in Adelaide, we really do have to put up a little bit more than market rate to lure people to come to Adelaide. And really, you have to target people and then pay whatever's necessary to get them to come.
But I
if you really want to get the best.
I don't actually see that as it's probably a valid point, Macca, but our CEO made the statement that he was going to compile or assemble the best-in-class football department. And you don't make a statement like that unless you understand how you're going to have to do that, because that's not a throwaway line. That is a big call. We're going to have the best-in-class football department. He must have understood the climate in Adelaide, the conditions around recruiting people, etc., 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 or else it's just lip service. So which one is it? Did they really have any intention of doing that, or was that just something to say?
either that or they're the worst judges in the world because, the minute you've thrown in Ben Hart and the minute you've thrown in Burton and the minute we put in Reed's son there when he was inexperienced and he's had to learn on the job as well. To me, they certainly have, by their actions, have not certainly backed up that claim by the CEO.
No, that's exactly right, and this is my point. You know, there are times to have young, inexperienced. Like you could forgive, say, a St Kilda for having an inexperienced coaching panel because they're a young team on the rise. You know, their coaching panel is probably going to benefit from the experience as they improve. Gold Coast the same. You know, but look what happened to Richmond once they actually got rid of their crap out of their coaching panel and actually installed a decent coaching panel around Hardwick. They got results. You know, this is what needs to happen. We need to actually put good people around Don to support him, give him good information, good feedback, timely feedback, so that we can be much more dynamic. Because at the moment, I reckon we're just about the easiest team in the competition to play against because both Geelong and Hawthorn have played this exactly the same style against us. They've pushed us into uncomfortable positions wide. They've denied us the corridor. They've clogged up our forward 50 and denied us deep entries. Sydney couldn't do it because they're probably not playing good enough to do it. But those other two teams have done it the same as they always have. And we're so predictable, Macca, that it makes you wonder why we're paying all that money to all these coaches who have spent the entire off-season and they can't even come up with a decent kick-out strategy.
That was disgusting. Seriously, that was disgusting. But there are so many areas of improvement, but to do that, they're going to actually, the coaches are actually going to have to acknowledge the fact they've made a lot of errors, and they're going to actually have to change selection and structure, and to get them to play the type of game plan that will win games and will be good enough to take into the finals. At the moment, as you say, Hawthorn and Geelong, they both set up very similarly against us. They allow us, they just wait for us to come and make mistakes and bring the ball to them. We really do need something different that makes it a little bit difficult for that particular game plan to work because at the moment we haven't got the answers to it.
Geelong laid 48 tackles against us, got 10 more rebound 50s than us, had 4 less inside 50s than us, and won by 4 goals. You know, we beat them in contested ball. You know, we beat them in the clearances. We got plenty of ball. We got plenty of inside 50s. We had enough, statistically, we had enough to beat them. And yet, we were struggling the whole evening, aside from maybe a 15 to 20 minute patch in the third quarter.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is that we were rated as having the best personnel and therefore the best chances of winning a premiership before the season started because of the quality of player that we have. Now, if just assuming that Champion Data know a little bit about their game, and even if they're not totally right, we should be doing better than we're doing, which means that if there is either something wrong in the way that the players are playing or something wrong in the game plan they're trying to play. So, there has to be changes made probably in both areas.
Well, let's have a look at it from a stats point of view. I'll just pick out a few players. Crouch had 35 disposals. Gibbs had 27. Matt Crouch had 27. Tom Lynch had 26. Now, do you think any of those 4 players had a big influence on the game? Brad Crouch, Bryce Gibbs, Matt Crouch, Tom Lynch.
Tom Lynch, no. Bryce Gibbs, no. Matt Crouch, a bit. And who's the other one? Brad Crouch?
Yeah.
Brad Crouch, I thought he had an impact. He was guilty of the things that you mentioned, but he also did I thought he had a positive impact, a net positive impact. But Tom Lynch, no. Bryce Gibbs, no.
I'll tell you something. I don't think Brad Crouch is an outside midfielder. And that's a problem because we've got too many inside players.
Well, in fairness to him, though, he's been out of the game for like a year and a bit.
You don't forget
year and a
how
half.
to play, Macca.
No,
You
but
don't forget how
by
to
the same
play.
token, best way to get him back into the game is to let him play outside, and he'll gradually force his way back in as an inside player again. He's not a chicken.
No. I'm saying that the only time that he's useful is when he's playing inside. Right? He had 8 clearances. Right? He had tons of contested ball. He's great inside. He's a bull inside, but he's not an outside midfielder, and yet we played him for large portions of the game outside the contest. And as I pointed out in my analysis of the first quarter, he was directly responsible for at least 2 goals against us and a number of other free ball from Dangerfield because he just would not chase. Right? So we got Rory Sloane, 26 touches. Now, Rory tried hard, and I reckon he had a really good patch from about halfway through the second until the end of the third. But aside from that, I felt like it was just a workmanlike display. Letty had 24 of the most inconsequential touches you ever see. Brodie Smith didn't really hurt with his 22. Miller did all right when he came onto the ball in the second half. Had 10 tackles too, Wayne Miller, which was a really good effort.
I disagree with you about Brad and Sloaney. I thought they both did play their guts out. Now, they may have made errors, and all players make errors, but those two did. I thought they gave a lot.
I'm not saying they're not trying, Macca, but there's times where you've got to be smart about how you're playing, and I don't think any of our midfield are actually playing very smart right now.
No, I mean, to be smart, you need players around you to use to be smart. And at the moment, I don't think there's that much confidence in the way we're playing.
That's my point. I don't think we have the right mix in the midfield. I think we have too many grunt players and not enough finesse players. And Bryce Gibbs was supposed to be that finesse player, but he's ended up just being basically the sweeper out the back because he can't seem to. He doesn't have enough pace to be able to break free.
Pace at all.
So he can't break free from any congestion whatsoever. Brodie Smith is all right when he's played through the middle. Wayne Miller is all right when he's played through the middle. They have to persist with those two through the middle because we just don't have anyone else. We talk about Hugh Greenwood coming in and we talk about CY being unlucky and on the surface you'd say, yeah, they deserve to be in it, and perhaps they do. But they just make us look even more one-paced. We actually need some speed through that midfield group and some creativity through that midfield group because at the moment they're just a bunch of one-pace hacks.
Look, we paid good money and gave up good draft picks to get Gibbs. I think I agree with the comment made in the chat. He to me, he's been a disappointing player in the sense that he's not going to ever be that little panacea that's going to result in us winning a flag. There are certain players that if you have them in your team, they are the difference between you being a certain level and going up to another level. Gibbs is not that man.
But we recruited him to be that man.
Yeah, but we recruited the wrong guy. He's a very good player. He's an honest player, and he's got limitations because he hasn't got pace. Really, the type of player that you should be recruiting to your team, if you really want to go that one step further, is somebody that a burst player like a Lockie Whitfield, that type of player. The player that can do the electric thing that will get the team charged up and really, really the crowd revved because they can do that outstanding things. Gibbs is just an honest worker. That's all he is.
Yeah. And at the moment, it looks like, in my opinion, Gibbs' best spot is across half-back. So we paid essentially, 1.5 first-rounders for a half-back flanker.
Not a good deal. Not a good deal at all.
No, in retrospect, not. Look, and there's some other honest tries there, but again, Riley Knight only had 11 touches, 7 and 4. Jake Kelly, I don't even want to talk about. Riley O'Brien, I don't want to talk about. Jenkins, poor old Paul Seedsman. Thank goodness it wasn't an ACL, but I don't think that's going to be a short-term injury irrespective. and our two key posts, Jenkins with 10 touches, 4 marks, and Taylor Walker with 7 touches and 4 marks, and 2 goals between them.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of players in the snaffle team that are in good form. Scholl, for example, who was one of our draftees this year, he had a boomer on the weekend, and he plays in defence, and he's a good mover of the ball. McHenry's got pace. I think it's got to the stage where we've got to play at least one or two of these guys each week to try and get something different, a different mix into the team. And to me, also, I can't believe that a bloke of Fogarty's ability is not in our team learning his game.
Well, it just has to be in there now. There's no other way around it. If you're gonna make room for David McKay, you can make room for bloody Darcy Fogarty, for goodness sakes, who's the future of your club. I agree with you on Scholl. I agree with you on McHenry. I think I'm not quite sure where Gallucci's at the moment, but he needs to be a priority.
Soon as he's available and fit, I agree.
I think Ben Davis needs to be a priority. I think we need to give him a run of games and see what he can do, particularly in the absence of Shane McAdam, who I would have probably had in there first, but he's not quite right at the moment. I'd also seriously consider Tyson Stengel because he's kicking goals, Mac, which is more than Betts or Murphy or Jones is doing at the moment. There's players in the twos that are playing all right, that would fulfil roles and are younger and quicker and more dynamic and give us a different look. And at the moment, as I said to you before, there's a sameness about us, and we must be the easiest team in the world to play at the moment.
Hunter, how tall is Hunter?
He's 2 metres. I'd have him in. I'd give him a shot.
Yeah, I just have to... Look, Riley O'Brien, I thought, wasn't bad at boundary throws.
He got monstered, Macca. He got outbodied so often.
But I thought he got beaten more in the centre than he did in
he got towed up. He got towed up in the centre, but he got outbodied a lot at boundary throw-ins.
Now I know it's only one game, and they'll certainly give him more chances. But Hunter can at least mark a ball, and then he can kick a football.
Hunter is the most natural footballer of the three of them. Between Jacobs, O'Brien and Hunter, Hunter is the most natural footballer. He'll take a grab, he's got a good kick, he's quite agile for a tall man, and he's a decent ruck. And I think he's got to be given an opportunity.
Well, to me, the old saying, if you keep doing what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always got. And at the moment, I don't like what we're getting. So I think we really should be doing something different, whether that be a mixture of players, game plan, whatever it is, because our problem really is we don't know what the players are being told to do. We can see what they're doing, and we know it's not right. But we just can't keep doing the same thing, because we'll beat some of the lesser sides, but we're not going to beat the teams that are the team to beat if you want to win a flag. And I can see our premiership window is closing very rapidly at the moment. 2017, it was wide open. 2018, Burton said, no, we'll just smash that glass. We don't want that window. And in 2019, well, we're actually not on schedule at the moment. And I think this is going to be our last chance for some time. And I know, previous to the season, we were regarded as the favourites, but we're looking like anything but that. And at one stage when Carlton looked like winning their game this week, I thought, my God, they'll be above us on the ladder. And I was thinking of that draft pick swap. And I was thinking to myself, geez, this is good. But anyhow.
Well, the thing is, Macca, we do have a lot of talent in our team. But at the moment, from what I've seen so far, analysing our games, there's a slowness, we seem unwilling to work, and our connection into forward 50 and our ability to take marks inside forward 50 is terrible, and couple that with a couple of strange selection choices, and I think that's left us where we are. So I don't think... I mean, it's a long season, and it's easy to be pessimistic on the back of a couple of disappointing losses. But it's not as if there's not something to work with there. But I think it comes down to whether the coaching staff, the selection panel, and the club have got the nuts to be decisive and be creative with their planning and their selection and their game plan. Because if they keep serving up the same thing, like you said, we'll get the same results. So a lot of this comes down to what the coaches and the selection panel does over the next 2 to 3 weeks, in my opinion.
Very much so. They do have a very heavy onus above their heads, a burden to carry at the moment and all that sort of stuff. Too many metaphors in that lot. But it is going to be a hard job for them because they seem to be going down the same path every time. They're going to have to do something different, and that difference is either going to be a refinement of the game plan to do something different in it, and I would think coupled with a couple of changes. I'm not talking about wholesale changes. I'm just talking about putting in people that are in form in the twos, that have got pace, and who are on the way up rather than on the way down. And I think, I look at Scholl, I look at McHenry, those two in particular, I think players that probably in any other club might have even been tried by now.
Well, maybe, yeah. Look, and we can go on and on. There's some work to do, no doubt about it. And a couple of terrible injuries that aren't going to help Tom and Seed going down, but and Source, obviously, although you could argue about that one. But, selection over the next couple of weeks is going to be very interesting. We do have some winnable games. The draw does soften up for us over the next 3 to 4 weeks, as you mentioned. So we need to be even Stevens after 6 rounds, Mac, in my opinion, to have any sort of shot.
Oh, I disagree. I think the next 4 games are all winnable games. And if we've got any aspiration to be a finalist this year, and particularly a finalist that's got any chance of participating deep into the finals, we should, and I think we have to, win our next 4 games, and that would put us at 5-2, and cover up a lot of sins that have gone on. But it's got to be because on the weekend I thought there was effort, but misplaced effort, and also some people's efforts not good enough. So, even though it was their maximum. So, although apart from Jenkins, who I didn't think was 100%. So, I think, yeah, like you said, it's not totally all negative, but the way they've lost those games against Hawthorn, the way they lost them against Geelong, it's a standard template that we've seen so often.
That's right, okay.
And that's the thing that really gets to you. You think, we can see it. I think every Crow supporter listening now or watch that game, the majority of people would have worked out what's going on. Surely our coaches can work it out. Surely they can come up with some different ways that will bamboozle the opposition at least for one game, but rather than just keep on doing the same old. But I think the next 4 games are all winnable, and if we do that, well then we might be saying nicer things about it. But at the moment, I don't feel very, very warm towards the way they're playing, and I don't feel warm towards the coaches, and some of the players I don't feel very warm to either.
No, and I'm not warming to Mrs. Macca. She's just about to get a Cockwomble nomination.
Oh, yeah, she's a good Trojan. She works her ass off around here.
All right, Mac. Well, let's leave it there. No Nicky, so we won't do a Cockwomble tonight. And to be honest, the Breakout, Jet and Wake Up Awards, I don't think there's enough really there to cover, so I think we might just finish up. Look, thanks everyone for listening to us. Thanks on the chat for participating, of course. If you want to have a look at the video, you can watch our video on Facebook Live on our Facebook page, AFL CrowCast, or you can watch it on YouTube probably from tomorrow morning, AFL CrowCast on YouTube. or you can go to our website once I posted it up, aflcrowcast.com. Thanks, Macca, for joining us. We didn't miss...
Just very, very quickly before we go, I was going to give Brian Taylor a cottonmouth because of the fact that he was trying to say that somebody had big fluffy head. He was trying to say that they had a boof on, but it came out as a boffin hair from him.
I think you need to save that for your sweets and smacks on Tuesday night, mate. You need all the ammo you can get.
Okay, mate. There's plenty there.
All right, thanks everyone. Thanks, of course, to our patrons. We really do appreciate your support. If you want to support us, click on the Patreon button on our website or go to patreon.com/AFL Crowcast, and we'll see you on Tuesday night for Tuesday Night Live. Good night, all.
Yeah, good night, all.